Johnson Controls Technology and Building Management Systems.
Hello, welcome to this EasyIO how-to video. In this video we are going to show you how easy it is to configure the EasyIO FW-VAV controller, just using a browser, without any additional software. All the parameters discussed in this video are directly available on BACnet. The dashboard writes to priority 16, and it's free to configure or edit the dashboard the way you want. Okay, first things first. Let's mount the controller. This is an important part. If you don't mount it on the right way, it doesn't work right. Open the air valve all the way, press the red button and move the motor all the way to the right. Now mount the controller. Now when the motor steers to 100%, it turns to the right, and when it is fully open the motor can't go any further because it is mechanically against the end of the motor. If it is now steered closed, it can't go any further, because it is mechanically against the end of the air valve. So this way you are assured of a correct open and close position. If you don't do this properly, the valve will close again the moment it is steered open. First login, the default IP address is 192.168.10.30, with username, admin, and the password is hellocpt. Check the firmware version, and if necessary update the controller to the latest version. From version 23, the controller is fully configurable with the dashboard. During updating, the red error LED will be on for a while. Updating takes about 10 minutes. If there are many controllers to update, the EMS tool can be used. The firmware and EMS tool are available from your EasyIO supplier. If the controller is updated, the password must be changed. By default there are two different versions installed. You can choose between a metric version, which starts up by default, or an imperial version. After logging in, you are automatically taken to the overview page. By clicking on the small plus sign at the bottom left, you can view the different pages. We will walk through all the VAV pages during this video. The most important page for proper operation is the Balancing Mobile VAV page. Here you can choose the units you want, however, this is purely for display and does nothing. If I choose liter per second, this will be visible on the overview page, and so you will see the chosen units there. But of course you can put the desired units behind all values yourself. After all, the dashboard is freely configurable. Further on the Balancing Mobile VAV page you can manually command the motor to the desired position. With damper rotation you can turn the operation of the motor the other way around. The most important parameter is the nominal airflow at 250 pascals. So this means how many liters per second, or cubic meter per hour go. Sometimes this is written on the box, sometimes it's on the box with 1 PA, and sometimes you don't know it. There is an EasyIO V nominal calculator available that makes this easy to calculate. This for the metric but also for the imperial version. On my VAV it says it does 32 cubic meters per hour at 1 Pascal, so if I enter this, the calculator gives the flow at 250 Pascal. This is which you enter in the dashboard. But even if there is no data from the VAV box, this can be calculated with this calculator, but it does require a pressure and a flow meter. Suppose I measure with a flow meter 111 cubic meters per hour in 12 Pascal, it calculate the flow at 250 Pascal. But also everything can be calculated and filled in liter/second or CFM. And you can also see a chart. With the Imperial version is set the flow at 1-inch water column, it works with CFM. Then in this page you can also set the minimum and maximum flow. The ranges can also be adjusted. The measured minimal and maximal flow can be left at 0, and only needs to be set if there is a deviation of the flow. So with these parameters, the entire line can be adjusted slightly. We start by setting the control to max flow, wait a moment until the control is stable, and measure the flow with an external flow meter. You fill in the real measured flow. For the minimum flow we do exactly the same thing. So we set the control to minimum flow, wait a while until it is stable and fill in the measured value. After this we set the control to automatic again. On the system config page you can set the BACnet name and instance number. You can also set the set points for occupied, standby and unoccupied for both heating and cooling, and the minimum differential between heating and cooling. The duration of the valve, in my case 56 seconds. In the control is a function that if the valve 120 seconds 0% or 100%, it sent again the given command, to be sure that the 3-point motor is in the right position. The CO2 control is automatic enabled. If no CO2 sensor is mounted, the measured value is 0 and it does nothing. If the CO2 sensor is used, and exceeds the set point, CO2 control will increase the set point through a PI loop. The max flow percent can be used to set the maximum air set point in CO2 mode. If set to 1, it is simply the max set point set on the previous page. Setting it for example to 0.9 will create 90% of the max flow set point in CO2 mode. If there is a supply sensor, the maximum supply temperature can be set. And the flow alarm gives an alarm by default after 600 seconds, at 10% flow deviation. Occupied command. This command can be controlled via BACnet with a BMS system, but of course the controller can also be used standalone. Full close or minimum flow when standby. If the motion sensor is used and the controller is occupy controlled, but there is no motion, the controller goes to standby. This parameter determines what to do with the flow. If full close is selected, the valve will only be closed if the room temperature is within the set point. If there is demand due to temperature or CO2, the valve will run open. Use motion or use no motion when unoccupied. If the motion sensor is used, and the BMS sets the VAV to unoccupied, then the motion sensor can reset the control to occupied for the entered time on the input page, which is 1 hour by default. But also if you don't use a BMS system, you can set the controller to occupied or standby with the motion sensor. This reduces energy. The sync damper switch resets the valve to the set position when the control goes to unoccupied, this to ensure that the valve is in the desired position. The reheat operates by default, and can be set to how many volts it operates at, whether it is normally open or closed, and what the delay for the second reheat is. The fan settings are for the VDT mode, which is not what this video is about. The fan for the VAV is standard on when there is a demand for airflow. Through BACnet you can give a morning reheat command. With these parameters you can set what to do with the heater and fan. The last page is the input config page. On this dashboard page, you can easily use the browser to select the desired inputs. You can choose between resistance or voltage input, wired to the universal input. Or you can select the Johnson Controls NS7000 or NS8000 network sensor. You can also choose a BACnet input, which can be useful if you want to make a master-slave control. Again, all the points in this video are available on BACnet. If resistance is selected, you can select the desired sensor here. For voltage inputs, you can simply use a slider to select the desired range. An offset can be given for all inputs. For the set point adjust select, you can also choose between the same types as the room temp. The wall module adjustment slider sets the maximum offset of the set point input, default is 4. So if I set it on 3, my set point range is -3 till +3. With UI3 function select, you choose between discharge or CO2. The hardwire type select, and UI3 voltage select, work the same as the previous inputs. With CO2 Select, you select the CO2 sensor coming in here, so either hardwired on UI3 or UI4 or via an NS8000 sensor. With UI4 function select, you select between inlet temperature, CO2 or in digital input motion sensor. And with motion detection, you select your NS8000 or a hardwired UI4 input. Last on this page is the motion delay. When the controller is set to occupied by motion, this is where you determine how long the control remains occupied after the motion is gone. Would also like to briefly show the Kiosk Mode, which is available in this FW-VAV but also in any other FW controller from version 23 onwards. But it is also available in the FS controller from version 61 onwards. On the permissions page, select the kiosk user. Here you can specify permissions for this user per page. So page view, or page view but also control. With the link in your screen, you can now log into the controller without entering a password. So this is useful for hyperlinking directly from a floor plan graphic seen the dashboard of the FW-VAV. Hope you are excited about this FW-VAV controller. If you have any questions, you can ask your local EasyIO supplier. Thanks for watching.
Johnson Controls Technology and Building Management Systems.